Good morning. My name's Richard, and today I want to talk about the streets of Los Angeles. This is my favorite cup. Got it in Little Tokyo. Okay, I'm a native Angeleno. I grew up in the heart of the San Fernando Valley. I'm 66 years old, and I'm having this really strange experience of realizing that I barely know this incredible town. Okay, to begin with, the actual city of Los Angeles has 4 million inhabitants. That statement could be a little bit misleading if you really want to understand what LA is. In City of Quartz, historian Mike Davis refers to Los Angeles as a multinodal metropolitan region. Well, what exactly does that mean? Well, when you begin your descent into LAX, you're flying over stretches of LA County, which is comprised of 88 different cities, all of which, from 5,000 feet at least, are indistinguishable from each other, with the exception of occasional clusters of tall buildings dotted across the landscape. Of course, the largest of these is the downtown district. Now, from an aerial vantage, the LA region is a seemingly endless carpet of urban and suburban sprawl, and it covers 34,000 square miles. That's east to west from Riverside to Ventura, north to south from Santa Clarita to Anaheim, and it's home to 13 million people. Los Angeles is not a city. Fresno is a city. Los Angeles is something else entirely. It's as much an idea as a location. And at $1.3 trillion, it has the largest metropolitan regional gross domestic product in the world, just behind Tokyo and New York. Now, as a native son, I'm going to make this bold assertion. Los Angeles is the most creative place in the world. Now, that has a lot of layers to it. I'm not only referring to the Hollywood Dream Factory or the vanguards of art movements which have emerged from neighborhoods like Venice, downtown LA, Leimert Park, Compton, WeHo, or NoHo, or the mind-bending diversity of restaurants and food that allow you to eat your way around the world in an hour in any direction. Nor do I carelessly demean other great cities. What Stradivarius is to violins, Los Angeles is to cities. It was built by entrepreneurs for entrepreneurs. If you have a passion, a concept, or if you just want to reinvent yourself, LA's the place to get it done. We have a heritage. We have a unique swirl of energy that doesn't exist anywhere else. Now, it's tied as much to who we are as to where we are and what we've built. It's geography, climate, history, diversity, and timing, all hitched to an aspirational mentality gone viral. LA infects you. It gets under your skin and into your veins. And you want to let everyone know about it one way or another. All of which sums up to one thing. Los Angeles, the region, is host to an unparalleled visionary mindset. It doesn't exist anywhere else on the planet, at least not as the pervasive cultural norm. Okay, I know that's a really zealous introduction, and what I want to drill down to might seem like a narrow subject. What I really want to talk about is our beloved traffic. Beloved what? Yeah, that's right. Beloved traffic. Just joking? No, actually I'm not. After much reflection, I've come around to the belief that in many ways it is paramount to who we are and what makes LA truly great. Now, Stradivarius made stringed instruments of unmatched quality. The secret to why they are so prized, though, is kind of a mystery. Is it the wood? Is it the really simple varnish they used? Is it construction technique? Were there chemicals he used to treat the plates and joints? Maybe it's just a happy coincidence of time, place, and personality. Or maybe it's even like one blind study suggests that great musicians only think a Stradivarius sounds better. We may never fully know. It's complicated. The unique conditions surrounding the genesis and growth of Los Angeles are kind of like that. A serendipitous confluence of just right factors that cannot be duplicated, and which, like a Strad, is recognized and respected for its singular character. However, like a Strad, it does require a fine artist to call forth the very best that such an instrument can yield. LA's like that too. And our beloved traffic is part of that. During several years of driving Uber around town, I had the chance to speak with thousands of people about cars and congestion. The consensus is unanimous. Traffic sucks. So, when I'd refer to it as our beloved traffic, I'd usually get a chuckle, at least. And sometimes I'd get a look that, like I got a couple of heads growing out of my shoulders, But it's amusing to me. The very presence of all these people going where they're going, doing what they're doing, being and becoming who they are, and going to the places where all of that occurs, that's the very weave and pattern of the fabric of the soul of Los Angeles. And the streets, boulevards, freeways, side roads, private drives, off-roads, and all the threads that stitch it and keep it all together. I also had a lot of conversations bemoaning our lack of public transportation. Why doesn't LA have good public transit? No, it's a fair question. I want to redefine that question just a bit. When I say public transit, that is generally understood to mean buses and trains that people can use to get around the city. It can mean more, of course. Look at any other great urban region like Chicago, New York, London, Paris, Tokyo, etc. Now, they all have significant and well-utilized rail and bus systems. Why doesn't Los Angeles do that? To our credit, back in 2017, Measure M was passed. That's going to allocate $120 billion in tax revenue over 30 years for transportation infrastructure. It might even be 40. It's actually open-ended. Okay, in its own words, it says to improve freeway traffic flows and safety, repair potholes, sidewalks, repave local streets, earthquake retrofit bridges, synchronize signals, keep senior disabled student fares affordable, expand rail, subway, bus systems, improve job, school, airport connections, and create jobs. It's pretty ambitious. The plan is to spend about $40 billion of it on rail. Now that may sound like a lot, but the average cost to build subways and light rail in the U.S. are $900 million and $150 million a mile, respectively. Now, the old red car system was 1,100 miles. We might end up with 200 miles if we're lucky. And that's not really going to be what some people envision. However, I think that this catches the real point. Our roads are public. Transportation of and by and for the public at large takes place on them. We just happen to have the freedom to set our own schedules, destinations, in a vehicle of our choosing. So, in a very real sense, our roads are our public transportation. Now, some Angelenos go to Tokyo or New York or London and they get rail envy. Some come here to visit or to live from places where the trains rock, and they ask, how come you don't have one? But here's the thing. The grass may be greener in the next yard, but lest we forget, that's because someone is shoveling manure on it regularly. And more important, because they care enough about what is uniquely theirs to make it the best it can be. For the sake of illustration, let's do a quick look at New York and Los Angeles. The U.S. Census uses two categories to describe metropolitan regions. The first is Metropolitan Statistical Area, MSA for short. The second, Combined Statistical Area, CSA, which defines a wider commercial region based on commuting patterns. Here's a quick breakdown. The New York MSA is home to 20.3 million residents in 2017 and occupies 6,720 square miles. The CSA population is 23.7 million in 2016 and takes up 13,318 square miles. And in comparison, Los Angeles MSA is 4,850 square miles, and its estimated 2016 population was 13,310,447. However, the CSA is nearly 3 times greater at 33,955 square miles, with an estimated population of 18,788,800 in 2017. And here's where the important distinction is. The urban core of New York, the 5 boroughs, had an estimated 2019 population of 8,336,817 distributed over about 302 square miles. The urban core of Los Angeles is 503 square miles and a 2019 estimated population of 3.99 million. Nearly 3 times the area and less than half the people. The island of Manhattan is 22.83 square miles. It has 1.629 million residents. If you've been there, you know New York's a walking town. It's been that way for a very long time. Major international cities were pre-industrial. New York's no exception. This matters because when most of these cities were founded, walking and horse-drawn carts were the normal modes of transportation. Studies show that people are willing to walk up to an hour a day to get to and from work and go about their business. And this has been true for millennia. So cities established before trains and cars tended to be denser by necessity. In 1860, New Yorkers on average lived 14 people to an apartment. Now, when it comes to using New York City subways and trains, New York's an outlier as far as the rest of the U.S. is concerned. 56% of New Yorkers use that system. That's more than anywhere else in the U.S. by a sizable margin. Now, I love New York, and I love walking and taking the subway. And here's why trains just work. Say you need to get from Lower Manhattan to the Upper East Side. You walk 2 blocks, go down a flight of stairs, and get on a train. Ride to a stop, switch trains, get off your final stop, go up a flight of stairs, walk 2 blocks, boom. You're there. What does it cost? $2.75. That's pretty cool. Now, I realize that's somewhat of a simplistic view, but it captures something essential about New York. You can rely on your feet and the subway. It's simple and convenient, and it works because the system evolved around those dense blocks, tall buildings, and walking culture that is New York. It's efficient for New York. That's important when it comes to getting around in Los Angeles. Our beloved traffic actually is still quicker and more dignified than a train, 2 buses, and a bike. Keep in mind that Los Angeles has less people spread over a much larger area. Density is important to effective mass transit solutions. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. Statistically, ridership of public trains and buses has been declining for the last decade. What's even more shocking is that only 5.6% of the U.S. population relies on them to get to work. Now, why is that? Now, again, it's complicated. Transportation is intrinsic to civilization. If you think we have traffic problems, you're right. But as it turns out, the Romans had traffic problems too, and not unlike our own. They had congestion, rush hour, axle benders, middle finger salutes, and leaders tearing their hair out just like we do. The differences are in scale, technology, and complexity. Though truthfully, they were still fairly sophisticated even back then. When you put a lot of people together, you get a big, hairy, nine-legged sack race. You get all the slings and arrows that mortal flesh is heir to multiplied by everyone in town. Keep it simple. Just add together 8 billion times. And look at the bright side. At the very least, we get to appear to be courteous to one another. That's what traffic lights are for, right? I think we're at an inflection point where a different mindset is required. One in which, instead of just getting a master's in some technical or professional field, we need PhDs in being human beings, parents, friends, co-workers, citizens, and yes, transit users, and whether we're driving or not. And yes, once again, it's complicated. But it's also wonderful and worthwhile. The reality of traffic goes right at the heart of the matter. It's about relating to people beyond a personal comfort zone and way beyond it, and thriving because of it. That is the challenge of the age. Civilized transportation could be said to have occurred in roughly 4 phases. The first, pre-industrial, was walking, riding animals or having them pull something, and boats. With the advent of the steam engine, industrialization exploded. Trains and powered boats made the movement of people and goods cheaper and quicker. This was followed by mass-produced automobiles, which put affordable transportation in the hands of large segments of the population. This happened at the same time as suburban expansion. People could live in the suburbs and work in the city. On the digital frontier of today, modes of transportation, including air travel, are becoming more sophisticated and individualized, with the incorporation of aerial and terrestrial autonomous vehicles just around the corner. Before the Transcontinental Railroad, it took 6 months to cross the U.S. Trains could manage it in a week. Planes do it in a few hours. Now, I know there are some activists who think that all the speed and sophistication is bad for the planet. And certainly there are very real and pressing issues surrounding how we use technology and its damaging effects on our environments and our humanity. Yet, I think to blame the technology or the system is a cop-out. We are the system. In 12-step programs, they have a slogan which I think might apply here. If you deal with your insides, your outsides will take care of themselves. We'll come back to that in a bit. Now, in the 80s, Missing Persons, a local LA band, had a hit song, Walking in LA. And it really captures the culture of the LA and the refrain. Walking in LA, walking in LA. Yeah, that's Del Bazio's signature yip. Nobody walks in LA. That crystallized a deeply rooted cultural understanding. And it isn't isolated either. The U.S. Census shows that 85% of American workers drive their cars to get to work. Now, as an Uber driver, I have some hands-on, though admittedly limited evidence about who's using rideshare. LA Metro says their bus ridership has gone down 25% over the last 10 years. People would rather Uber than train or bus. And my riders weren't all millennials and professionals either. I picked up guys with their tools, mom with their kids, students with their backpacks, and so on. And having used the bus in the past commuting to work, some passengers sure reminded me of my fellow bus passengers. I picked up riders all over town too, South Central, East LA, Pacoima, as well as Hollywood, Beverly Hills, and Santa Clarita. And I think it's because it allows each of them to get where they need to go in a timely, efficient, and comfortable manner. Now that isn't new. Not at all. I think that matters more than we know. Back in the land boom of the 1880s, people came here from the East Coast because they wanted to get away from the urban crush of the East Coast. The sweet song of citrus and sun lured them here by the tens of thousands. They could come to Los Angeles, own a piece of land, build a little house on it, plant some citrus trees, take a train into the city, and then when they were finished with their business in town, grab the train back to their little acre of heaven in the suburbs. The story is not unique to Los Angeles. Most U.S. cities have a version of suburban expansion and sprawl that includes interurban railways. Streetcars took them to the suburbs, but over time, the rail systems, one by one, went bankrupt. This trend gained momentum in the 1930s when federal infrastructure dollars were spent on highways and bridges and not on railroads. They simply could not compete with the efficiency, comfort, and popularity of the automobile. Some, like the Pacific Electric Company here in LA, limped along for a couple of decades. But the truth is, most of them were never intended as long-term public transit systems. The streetcars which used to crisscross the entire Southern California region were a marvelous innovation. In 1920, Los Angeles had the largest electric railway in the world. It was nearly 1,100 miles of track. Today, New York's entire system is 850 miles. But the truth is, it was a tool of the entrepreneurs who developed the land and built the cities here. It was common for developers to build a train line between two towns that had common business interests. They built trains to facilitate commerce. Then along came Henry Huntington, cashed up by his uncle Collis Huntington's estate with deep roots in the Southern Pacific Railroad Company. His business empire wasn't only the railroad, it was real estate, power utilities, and streetcars. He didn't wait to find two willing towns to build a train between them. He built a train to nowhere, which he just happened to own, and people came in droves, and in no time at all, a city and thriving businesses followed. It was actually kind of magical. I want to convince you that not only is the traffic in Los Angeles an essential part of what we are, but that the challenge of dealing with it is the best gymnasium for the life muscles a person needs to thrive here or in any advanced technological region. The odd mix of people crush and privacy that an automobile-centric transportation portfolio contextualizes is firmly embedded in the regional footprint as well as our shared psyche. The kind of cultural assumptions that Los Angeles rests on were established over many generations. We like our cars because we like creative freedom. Trains may help, but they aren't the answer. Bikes and scooters, maybe a slice. Autonomous taxi fleets with vehicles that are truly mobile, offices like I saw at the Toyota Pavilion at CES earlier this year? Getting warm. Air taxis? Probably. I'm not suggesting that we don't include rail in our transportation portfolio. I'm asserting that it won't address the true character of this place. At a 2017 lecture at Occidental College, I heard Mayor Garcetti talking about Measure M and getting around in LA. Now, I like him. I think he's done his homework in most respects. He's a native and he's been in our politics a long time. So he really understands a lot about who we are and what Los Angeles is. He mentioned conversations he had with Elon Musk about boring tunnels and running cars in them. But he was dismissive, saying, we want trains. They couldn't come together. Now, I happen to think that's where he's gone off the rails, by trying to get us all on track, so to speak. The footprint of Los Angeles is car-centric. Trains can't support that. We had trains, and they got in the way. In 1935, there was an on-grade streetcar that ran from downtown to Santa Monica along San Vicente. It never went faster than 15 miles an hour and stopped at traffic lights. In the time it took the train to get to the beach, a car could be to the beach and back. Or let's say maybe you've driven on Mulholland Drive, dip down into Coldwater Canyon, and then turn onto Franklin Canyon to get somewhere, to get to visit a friend or something. And you know how narrow, winding, and really treacherous those streets are. How do you get any current public solution to service an area like that? You can barely get in there with a car, let alone something larger. Now, the footprint of Manhattan is walking-centric. Subways can and do augment that really nicely. Here, we need to augment cars, which by 2040 will be a mix of level 3, 4, 5 autonomy and nearly all electric. Now, sure, you can argue interurban railways may deserve a juicy supporting role. But in LA, the lead roles belong to automobiles and their coming descendants. To think otherwise, to put it kindly, is quixotic. A quick lesson from the past. At the beginning of the industrial boom, engineers and businessmen built a complex system of locks and canals in the Northeast, around the Great Lakes, like the Erie Canal. The economics made sense. Before that, a team of 4 horses could pull a 1-ton wagon 12 miles a day on the roads. That same team could drag 100 tons 24 miles along a canal. That made a lot of sense, or so it seemed. But even before the canal infrastructure was completed, they started adding railroad spurs for the vital legs to market, and within 3 decades, the canals were all but abandoned. Not long after that, the Transcontinental Railway was completed. The time and cost of interstate freight and passenger travel was reduced more than 80%, and the routes weren't limited by waterways. I mention the history because perhaps we need to learn from it. Given the trends in technology and the pace of innovation, I'm troubled to think that we may be spending tens of billions of dollars on a system that is likely to be obsolete before it's even finished. Culture is remarkably obdurate. Anyone who has dealt with cultural transformation within, say, a 50,000 person company knows that such an undertaking is measured in years, even decades, not months. You can't change the culture of a company just by building a cool new office, communicating the new values over and over and over and over, offering training, holding focus groups, including everyone in the process to get buy-in. Now, I'm not saying those things aren't good. I'm not saying they don't work, but cultural assumptions run deep. And below the conscious level, really, for everyone. They don't really change, but wise leaders know they can be adapted. Though our metropolis is not even a century and a half old, the culture and mindset of Pacific Rim trade and innovation runs deep, very deep, and is very old. To imagine Los Angeles will run more trains and buses and persuade people to ride them in the face of our geography, history, complex shared culture and economy, and rapidly emerging technologies may be noble, but it's far more naive than it might appear on the surface. In the pre-automobile era, electric interurban rail was the most economical way to connect outlying suburban and exurban parcels to central cities. We outgrew trains in the 1950s, just as we outgrew canals in the 1850s. Los Angeles has not yet stepped up to the plate to a 21st century approach, which hopefully looks beyond to a 22nd century concern about future needs and changes. We lost our transportation virginity to the automobile. Unfortunately, we did it with our unseeing eyes wide open. Now, I think we might just benefit more from learning about intercourse and all of its implications and responsibilities, including to our environment, rather than yearn for what is really in the rearview mirror. Trains aren't the answer to climate change. Collaboration is. Let's go back to the Hollywood Hills and do a little Imagineering. Thank you, Mr. Disney. Nice local boy. What if a resident from Franklin Canyon who works in Century City needs to go from his office to his hairstylist right after work, stop and pick up a gift for his wife, meet her at home, and then go to dinner downtown at La Boucherie? Now let's further suppose that Los Angeles has created a regional transportation network platform, RTNP, for the entire portfolio of transportation elements in Los Angeles, which includes personal vehicles, which you can opt in or out on demand, but also autonomous road cars, trams and buses, air taxis, trains, attended trains, road cars and buses, aerial gondolas, delivery vehicles, which can include machines like R2-D2, drones, and panel vans, motorized and pedal bikes, scooters, and anything else the micro-mobility space comes up with in the next 30 years. Gee whiz, we've had smartphones for 15 years. What could happen in 30? The key is the platform is flexible and scalable, and it can add routes, services, and information in real time. It'll know when one service is running late and can quickly propose a suitable alternative. If you used a GPS service like Waze or rideshare like Uber, you're seeing a very early version of this. Kind of like the difference between DOS and a smartphone. For those of us who remember keystrokes and floppy disks, that means something. So, back to our fellow. He's booked a private mobile office to his barber since it's about 20 minutes to Santa Monica. Then from there to the air taxi pad on top of his stylist's building to the pad on Mulholland Drive, closest to his home, where the local autonomous minivan takes him to his door, notifying his wife just before he arrives. He had to work late, so he scheduled a drone to deliver the gift to the restaurant, complete with ribbon and bow. He'd planned to let his personal car drive him to the restaurant. But he got an alert suggesting that perhaps an air taxi to downtown would get him there sooner. It presents him with the different options and the estimated time and cost for each. He decides to go with the app suggestion and opts his personal car out of the RTNP. Using his smartphone, he requests the local minivan again. It also presents him with an intended road car option as getting him to the taxi pad 8 minutes sooner. He clicks OK. 1 minute later, the car arrives. They're on their way. The services, as it turns out, are mostly privately owned transportation companies, both business to consumer and business to business. But the RTNP also connects vehicles owned and operated by municipal agencies, including police, fire, and other city services. It's not owned by any one of the 88 cities in the county. The regional platform is a resource, which, like the roads, is shared and connects the entire grid and allows each city to better manage traffic flows, safety events, and divert traffic around problem areas in real time. It also coordinates revenue sharing between the cities and the transportation vendors and provides a credit card-based payment system for users using blockchain technology. Users can subscribe monthly or on an as-need basis. Everyone could have access to everything on the platform, with obvious discretion for B2B providers and municipal vehicles, based on a tiered system and ability to pay. And because it takes the place of some city-managed transportation services, tax dollars could subsidize many of the more basic transportation options to make them truly affordable for everyone. And luxury options would be at the user's discretion, like the guy describes off, he's got money. And not everybody would want to use that kind of transportation. Now, as a portal for existing transportation network companies and deliveries companies, it gets us to a convenience level equal to or maybe surpassing the relatively seamless approach described earlier for New York. And because of the long-term accumulation of real-time traffic and usage data, the system would tend to get more efficient over time. And add smart street infrastructure to this, and it gets real interesting, real fast. I could, of course, go on with this, but I think you get the idea. We want to improve the way we get around in greater Los Angeles. Yes, we need to improve how we get around. We need to make peace with our beloved traffic. Truthfully, I think it's a combination of mindset and technology. Cool apps alone will not address the real issue, which is how we think about sharing the roads in this town. And I believe we have in our DNA the capacity to crack the transportation code here. Moreover, I don't think we ought to settle for a patchwork of ideas like trains, buses, cars, and bikes drawn from other cities. If Los Angeles is truly the most creative city in the world, which I believe it to be, then we can and ought to come up with the most original and most effective transportation portfolio ever. We have the minds, we have the money, we have the culture, we have the need. We now require the will to work together to capitalize our unique style of thinking, acting, and creating that will make it possible for anyone who lives here to get where they need to go, do what they need to do, and find it convenient, practical, and really cool. Okay, go, LA, go! Thanks for listening. Have a great day.